I got a package! Hooray! This will lead into a project I've wanted to do for a while now. This is not listed on the NES Cart DB, even though it's not super rare or anything. Super Pinball for Famicom. I'm going to open it with this Jorgensen bar clamp so I can ID the board and clean it. I use this to open most Famicom cartridges. With the cart placed in the grip, I'll pry with one hand while I increase and decrease pressure with the other. I'll usually have to flip the cartridge over. It takes a bunch of attempts on each side. There are plastic tabs that hold the shell together that have to be popped, and I try not to break them. I've seen people do this with quick grips, but I was never able to use those to open Famicom cartridges successfully. I felt one tab pop a little. It won't be long now.
One eternity later.
One tab done. Usually the other doesn't take too long. Alright, both tabs are done. There are two tabs at the top that can be popped by gently prying the two halves apart. So this is an SGROM board. I cleaned everything up off camera. Putting Famicom cartridges back together is pretty easy. Place the board in the shell. Fit the two top tabs in place. Everything needs a good squeeze all the way around. The tabs will pop right back in. Super Sushi Pinball is an unreleased localization of this game that was found and dumped by the Video Game History Foundation. I've wanted to make a repro cartridge of this since they released it over a year ago. Looking at the prototype images in their video, this doesn't have a battery. SGROM should work. I'll only need to replace the program ROM because it uses character RAM. Let's cannibalize Rocket Ranger. If you're going to use an original game for a repro, make sure that it's nothing special first. Rocket Ranger, not gonna be missed. This is the SGROM board that I was looking for. Ah yes, the old hand-pumped desoldering iron. Wouldn't it be nice if I had the Hakko FR301 instead? Flux! More flux! Now that I'm satisfied that I've made enough of a fluxing mess, it's time to desolder all these joints. This would be much easier and cleaner with the Hakko FR301 desoldering tool. I am fundraising to get my hands on one. They'll set me back over $300. I'll include some more info in the description. Check out this chip grabber. And the program ROM isn't coming out. Because the hand pump didn't remove all the solder from these joints, I'm wiggling every individual pin to free them with a pair of needle nose pliers. Success! Now I've got to clean up this fluxing mess. This is not looking great. I'm gonna clean it up with some solder wick. And another cleaning with rubbing alcohol. Now everything should be ready for the EPROM. Ignore the EPROM you see here. I've been up the wrong legs. I can move forward with soldering the wires in place though. One in hole 1, the other in hole 24, and the third one I'll worry about later. Excess wire can always be cut down to ensure that you're not going to get any bridging. The EPROM has the correct legs bent up and trimmed down this time. While this project requires a 27C010, as the ROM file is 128 kilobytes, a 27C020 can be used as a substitute. Because it's higher capacity, the ROM had to be doubled to 256 kilobytes before being written. Thanks to John Riggs for letting me in on this little trick. The EPROM should fit in place over the wires that were installed. Like everything, it takes some fidgeting. I'm putting flux on the 4 corner pins of the EPROM. I'll solder these first to anchor it down. As I usually do, I'm going back and touching up the joints. I'm fluxing all of the remaining pins, and it's time to solder them in place. These joints look okay, but I'm going to touch them up. I'm just heating the joint, then pulling the iron to the top of the pin. It doesn't hurt to add solder balls to these unused pads. Flux. I'm tinning pins 30, 24, and 2 with some solder. These are the ones I just fluxed. The wire that runs to hole 24 is going to be soldered to pin 2. Give it a tug. It's not moving. The wire that runs to hole 1 gets soldered to pin 30. Another tug. We're good. Pin 24 needs to be wired to ground. After tugging, I'm going to route the wire. On the back side of the board, I'm soldering to pin 16. It's a ground pin. If you need to, you can touch up your work. I do. I'm a little bit OCD. Okay, so I'm a lot of bit OCD. It's good to make sure the pins aren't bridged too. Always clean up, always let everything dry. Everything looks good. I'm going to put it back in the shell and give it a test. Testing always gives me the anxiety. It works. We've got Super Sushi Pinball. I cooked up some custom labels for the cartridge. If you'd like a more detailed video on how I make these labels, I did a pretty in-depth one a while back, so you can search my channel for it. Now that I've got this thing put together, I'm gonna give it to one of my friends as a gift. Just to take things a little further, I made a custom patch for the Retron 5. I'll leave a link to it down in the description. You can use this patch with your original Super Pinball cartridge and a Retron 5 to play Super Sushi Pinball. So is this game any fun? It's a standard early video pinball game. It's not the most amazing thing you'll ever play, and it's by no means a bad game. I'm happy to see a game that would otherwise be lost in the ether found and publicly released. Big thanks to the Video Game History Foundation for this. I'm also happy to hold it in my hands. It's almost like I'm living in an alternate reality where the game actually did get a release. I'm gonna play it a bit more. It seems you don't even collect sushi pieces until a bit later in the game. Maybe I'll do a gameplay video of it. I'm gonna try to get good because right now I'm pretty terrible. Until the next video, okay, bye.